All right, Shalom family.
Conference muted.
As you know, we're going into the holy and blessed Sabbath day, but also, we have a feast day in which we're actually commemorating as well. All right, we're giving honor to the Most High, not only for the great victory which He, which He allowed us and which He gave us. All right, when you read in our history. All right, so around this time, we're going to be going into the book of Maccabees. All right, first Maccabees, Maccabee in the Greek meaning the hammer. All right, so you find out that one of the key figures here in this book, his name was Judas Maccabeus, right, or Judas the hammer. All right, that's where Maccabee comes from. All right, because of the way Judas fought, the way he carried himself. Okay, so now let's open up to the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1. And we'll get a little bit of the history of how the Greeks came into power, right? So when you read back in the book of Daniel, you'll see that the Greek nation was one of the empires that was prophesied to come into power, right, during the time which Daniel saw this prophecy, all right? So before we continue in First Maccabees, let's go to Daniel real quick. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 7. And let's get this prophecy. And now, so I'm going to start at verse 1. And it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and a vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told some of the matter. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So now you see that Daniel's having this vision by night, right? Now he says, in this vision, he said, by the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. So the four winds of heaven, talking about the four corners of the earth. And then when he's talking about this great sea, he's talking about the Mediterranean Sea. So now he's seen all of these wars and all of these battles and these beasts come up in the regions of the Mediterranean Sea. All right, when you look at your concordance or, your Bible atlases, you'll see the region in which the Mediterranean lies, okay? So you'll see Europe, all right, parts of Italy, you see parts of Spain, you see North Africa, then you see the continent of Israel, and then, the rest of Europe, okay, or Asia Minor. All right, all the way to the Aegean Sea and all of that. So that's talking about the Mediterranean region in which Daniel is seeing this prophecy unfold within his mind. So he said all these four beasts were diverse, one from another. So each beast that came up was stronger, was mightier, and was greater than the beast that was before it. All right. So now, during this time, this is Daniel. He said this is in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. All right. So now Belshazzar, he's the king of the Babylonians at this time. So now the Babylonian reign is coming to an end. Right. So their power is winding down, and you'll find out that it was another power that was coming up after the Babylonians, which they were called the Persians. Now the Persians had ruled for over 206 years, and now you'll see that once the Persian rule came to an end, it was another powerful empire that came into play. And we're going to read about that empire. Okay, so now it says here, and this will be the third beast. And it says, after this I beheld, and lo, this is Daniel chapter 7, and I'm starting at verse 6. And after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. And the beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. So now this beast that he saw, he said he saw this beast, and it was of a leopard, right? And it says which had upon his back four wings of a fowl, and the beast was given also had four heads, and dominion was given to it. So this beast was given absolute power over the face of the earth, right? So when it talks about those four wings, it's talking about the four generals. When it's talking about the four heads, it's talking about the four regions of the empire that was given to those four wings. Those four wings were the generals of Alexander. All right, Alexander the Great. And then those four heads of dominion which he was given, you'll see was Africa, all right, which Ptolemy took over Egypt. You'll see that Chrysander had Greece. You'll see Lysimachus had Thrace. You'll see that Antiochus or Seleucids, he had what we know as Asia Minor, going all the way through Assyria, Iran. All right, so those were the empires or the four regions of those beasts. All right, so now this is the third beast, and this is the third kingdom that's coming upon the face of the earth, and this is what Daniel is witnessing in his vision. All right, by night. So now let's go to the book of First Maccabees, and let's actually see that prophecy being fulfilled. Okay. So now this is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 1. All right. So now it says, and it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So now when you finish reading chapter 8 of Daniel, you'll see that this prophecy actually came to pass as well, right? So remember, Daniel had saw a he-goat, and that he-goat represented the first king of Greece, all right, which were your Greeks, all right, or your Macedonians, okay? So now you see that Darius, the king of the Persians and Medes, the Persians and Medes were the ones who took down the Babylonians. Persians and Medes were wiped out by the Greeks, all right? And now you see that dominion is now given unto the Greek Empire. This is an empire which Alexander had developed and taken over, okay? And it was being developed by his father, whose name was King Philip, as you see is mentioned here in the scriptures. So now let's read on. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went throughout the ends of the earth and took spoil of much nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. So you see that Alexander, this Greek army was so powerful, it says that they took many strongholds. They defeated many great nations that were mightier than them, nations that have been around a lot longer than them. Okay? It said insomuch that he was all the earth was quiet before him, meaning no army on the face of the earth could touch this empire, all right, could touch Alexander's army. And then it says, whereupon he was exalted, and it says his heart was lifted up, so meaning that this is how much pride that this man had in his heart. Verse 4, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And that's when we begin to go into the part of Greek Hellenization, right? You'll see that many of the cultures that were around the ancient Israelites, you'll see that they had also taken on the Greek customs and philosophies and ideas, so on and so forth, right? So now, verse 5, and after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So now this is when the four heads, right, or those four wings, and the four heads and the dominion was being given to them, right, like exactly what we read in the book of Daniel chapter 7 and verse 5, all right? So now this is Alexander, he perceived that he should die, right? So remember, Alexander died of a venereal disease called syphilis, okay? So now let's read on. Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. So he was 32 when he finally died. All right. So he came into power at like 25 years of age, and then he died at 32. And his servants bared rule, every one in his place. So now his servants or his generals, they bear rule, everyone in his particular portion of the empire which they had. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so did their sons after them many years. and evils were multiplied in the earth. So now you see when evil actually began to multiply upon the face of the earth. So now you see that when this Greek nation came into power, Edomites, all right, the Macedonians, this is when evils were multiplied throughout the face of the earth. This is where all of the abominations that were being wrought that you see now on the face of the earth, you'll see that the Greeks, they did it like 10 times worse, right? You'll go into like a lot of the pedophilia that they were into, boy lovers and all of that, all right? These are the things that they were putting out there upon the face of the earth and making the other nations also partake of it, all right? So let's read on. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. Remember, because the heathen that were round about them, many of those heathens converted to the ways of the Greeks, right? That process is called Hellenization. Okay, so now remember, the Greeks were ruling over the Israelites at this time. All right, so you see that many of these wicked men in Israel, they began to persuade many of the people. So like many of like your religious leaders, leaders of the people, governors and senators and things of that nature, right? They were the ones who were going to the Greek government and wanting to make league with them. All right, and we read that in the book of Second Maccabees, and it goes into a lot more detail about that. All right, so now let's read on. So it says they persuaded many, okay, and saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So now you see that the Israelites, man, they always kept themselves separate from the ways of the heathen, right, so that they could keep their law. But when we separated ourselves, that brought great oppression upon us. Because why? Why? Because they wanted to do wickedness. They wanted to practice homosexuality. They wanted to do child sacrifice. They wanted to do all of these wicked things, which our laws did not allow us to do. All right. So now you see that they're trying to get the people, all right, to come and take their side, in which they want to join the other nations. All right. So remember, in the law it says, "Seek not their peace, neither their prosperity." The Lord gave us a law in the book of Deuteronomy. I believe it's chapter 18. So the Lord gave us a law not to seek the prosperity of the other nations. We're supposed to seek our own prosperity, the prosperity in which the Most High gives us. All right. Let's read on. Certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. So there were certain men, there were certain leaders that were so forward, that were so evil, that they had went to the king, and the king gave them license, right, to do after the ordinances of the heathen. So what were some of the ordinances of the Greeks? You keep the feast of Zeus, right? How can I put it? They began to participate in the Greek Olympic Games, right? When you read about the Greek Olympic Games, that dealt heavily with homosexuality. The gymnasiums that were being built, right? And which we're going to read about here. Okay, they have built those things. So there were many things that the Greek culture did that these men in Israel wanted to make money off of, because they see that these were like the hottest trends and things like that, to where they can get their wealth and prosperity from, right? So now hold that real quick. Hold this in First Maccabees, and let's go to Second Maccabees, chapter 4, and verse 9. So you'll see a little bit of, or a glimpse of, what is being done here when he talks about they went and got license from the heathen, all right, or from the king of the Greeks. So let's read this. So it says here in 2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 9, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set up a place of exercise. You look up those places of exercise, like I said, they were called gymnasiums. And those gymnasiums, that's where you had men wrestle and fight in the nude. They fought naked. Okay, it's the practice for the Greek Olympic Games that were coming. And it says, and for the training up of the youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochus. So it says, which the king had granted him, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greek fashion. So this man, you'll see, whose name was Simon, he brought his own people, or he persuaded many of his people to come to the Greek fashion, to the Greek culture, all right, which was a homosexual culture, okay, which I will go into a little bit tomorrow, man, to show you that them Greeks, a lot of the things that they did revolved around homosexuality and pedophilia, right? They would be in love, they would court young boys and still have wives and things of that nature, man. A lot of the stuff was very sick. It was disgusting, okay? So then, now let's go back to First Maccabees. So this was a lot of the evils, man, that our people that they were faced with. And it says in verse 14, I'll read it again. I'll read verse 13 again. It says, this certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the custom of the heathen. So they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem. This is the holy city of God. And you see that they're building a place where men can wash and bathe themselves in front of each other and wrestle naked, throw discs naked, shot put and run against each other naked. In the holy city of God, this is the city in which the Most High have placed his name. So you see how forward these men were. You see how much greed and power, was corrupting them, right? To the point where they didn't give a damn about the holy city of the Most High anymore. They profaned the name of the Most High. And they wanted to do what? They wanted to make their money, man. They wanted to build these places of exercise so that they could make money. Okay, so let's read. And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant. So they made themselves uncircumcised and they forsook the holy covenant. Now, does this mean that they put the skin right back around their foreskin? Absolutely not. They didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. So what they did was that they began to forsake the laws of the Most High. All right? That's what made them uncircumcised. Okay? And it says, and they forsook the holy covenant, and they joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief, right? So now when they're talking about they forsook the holy covenant, man, they no longer had a desire to keep the laws of the Lord at that point. They no longer wanted to keep the laws of the Lord, and they began to join themselves unto the other nations, right? Just like you see our people have done today. Just like you see them, they want to be with the other nations. They want to do all of the things that the other nations are doing. And they said, well, you know what? We no longer have a desire to serve the Lord. That's what it means by them forsaking the holy covenant. All right. Why? Because at this time you'll see that, they had a choice, right? But then you see a lot of our people didn't bow down to the customs and the ways of the Greek. And then you'll see as we read along that they were being forced after that. All right. So now let's read. So it says, and they were sold to do mischief, verse 16. And now when the kingdom, verse 16, and now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion over two realms. So that's going into what we know as the Sixth Syrian War, right? So that was the war between Egypt and Syria, all right? So let's drop down and let's read verse, I want to read verse, let's read verse 20. And it says, after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 140th and third year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. So now you see, this is the Greeks, they're getting ready to start afflicting the children of Israel. Let's read on. And entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the gold altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof. So you see, they went into the Lord's holy place. They went into the temple, and they ransacked it. That's one of the most greatest forms of disrespect that the heathen could do to the children of Israel. Go into the sanctuary of the Most High and take out those things that were precious unto him. They took the altar, they took the candlestick, and they took all of the vessels. Remember, all of this stuff was pure gold. That's how the Most High wanted. Wasn't none of this fake, wasn't none of this no off-brand of gold or anything like that. This was pure gold. This was worth fortunes. You can read about that going back into the book of Kings, right? When Solomon was building the temple of the Lord, all right, and how they made many of the vessels. Also, you can read about that in the book of Exodus, how the Lord wanted all of what he desired the temple to have had to be pure gold. Let's read. So they took all of this out of the sanctuary, and the table of showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the victuals, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. So they completely destroyed the temple of the Lord. They profaned it badly. All right. Let's read on. He also took the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. He took the hidden treasures which he found. So all of the treasures that were hidden, that the priest tried to hide, they took that as well. And when he had taken away, when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoke very proudly. So look at that. It said that they came in, man, and they killed many. They killed many Israelites. They profaned the temple of the Most High. They ransacked everything which the Israelites held precious. And it says he went back and returned to his own country, spoke very proudly. All right, they made a great massacre of the people. But let's read on. It gets worse. Therefore, there was mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and the elders mourned, and the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. So now look at this. You had the leaders. You had the leaders, man, of the people, man. They were mourning because this was so heavy of an affliction upon our nation. The virgins and the young men, they were made weak. Sisters were strong, brothers were strong. They was made weak because of all of this destruction that was coming upon our nation. And when you read in the book of 2 Maccabees, it said the law was being kept very well. But then what happened was there was a division at that point. And that's something that we'll go into later, at a later time, man, about division and what division causes amongst the nation, right? So let's read on. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. So those who were in the marriage chamber, man, those they couldn't even enjoy their spouse's wife, man, their spouse was killed. It said that they were in heaviness, depression, sadness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. With straight confusion. Why? Because you had so many of the leaders, man, that were selling out to the Greeks, completely confusing the people. This is what you see what's going on today. Many of our people are waking up, man. Many of our people are looking for leadership. They don't understand, man, that the answer the book that they really need to be reading is the very book that we reading about the history of how all of this confusion happened, man. When our people want to seek the glory of the other nations and not the glory of the Lord, they want to close the Bible and don't want to open it up, man, to really see, like, look, this is the code and the guidelines that we need to follow. Let's read on. So there was a great confusion in the land of Israel. And after 2 years were fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tributes unto the city of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them. but all was deceit. So now he's sending one of his chief collectors, right, into the cities of Judah. And now this is when they're going to take more money, right, collect more tax money from the people, all right? So remember, whatever tribute that was already laid upon them, now they're going to double that right here, right? So he says he spoke peaceful words, came to the people like he was friendly, like he was loving, like he wasn't going to hurt them or anything, right? It says, but all was deceit, for when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city and smote it very sore. So now as they was giving him credence or respect, he told his men, kill them all. Let's read on. And smote it very sore and destroyed much people in Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captives and possessed the cattle. So they took the women and the children as slaves, and they took the cattle, man, which were their possessions, right? So let's read on, verse 33. Then built they in the city of David with a great and strong wall and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. So now they also built them a watchtower to where they could keep surveillance on all of the activity that's going on in Israel. It says, and they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there. And so they became a sore snare, right? So they began to put all of their armor, victuals, their food supply, everything, even the gold and the silver, the money which they stole from the children of Israel and overtaxed the people, they set up in there as well, right? And this tower became a very sore snare to the children of Israel. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary and an evil adversary to Israel. So check that out. You see what they was doing? And it's like anybody that goes to the sanctuary to try to cleanse it, rebuild it, we gonna kill them. Keeping surveillance on people, all of that, right? But let's read on. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it. So how when you shed innocent blood, meaning that you're not killing according to judgment, you're killing just to kill. You're just killing people just to kill people, right? And this is what they were doing. So they did this in so much, man, that it defiled the sanctuary. It says, in so much that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, meaning that the city of David, Jerusalem, became occupied by other nations, strangers. Just think about it. All of the nations that hated us, from the Edomites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, all of these nations began to live inside of Jerusalem, all of the Hamitic nations that were there, just like you see it is right now. You see who dwells over there right now. You see that your Edomites, they up in there, which call themselves Jews. You see your Africans are going back over there, migrating. You see that your Chinese, they over there praying towards the West Wall or whatever it's called. You see that your Ammonites is over there, Japanese people. You see all of these nations are in Jerusalem this very day, right now. And it's been like that for over 2,000 years, right? We can go to the Crusade. We can talk about the Crusade. We can talk about all of those wars that were what? That was for the holy city of Jerusalem. Some great battles, many men that lost their lives over this city, right? So it says, the habitations, it says, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers and became strange to those that were born in her. So many of the Israelites began to leave and flee out, man, because it was too much. The affliction was way too much for them. Being killed, being persecuted, being overtaxed, not being able to afford the housing in which you were given, which was in your family for generations. Now all of that is being taken away. Now you see strangers moving. That's like us. We the only Israelite family on the block, man. There used to be tons of us on this neighborhood block. Now we see all of these nations moving in now. That's what it's talking about. The nations was moving in, Israel was moving out because of the affliction, right? Let's read on. And became strangers to those who were born in her, and her own children left her, and her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. So as beautiful as the city of Jerusalem was, you see that, man, it was being laid waste. It said the sanctuary, man, was waste like a wilderness. Wasn't nobody in there. Shrubs and plants growing up in there. Everything defiled, right? And it says her feasts were turned in the morning. Couldn't nobody celebrate the holy feast of the Lord because all was this sadness, man. You every time you step outside your door, you see one of your people being killed. How could you celebrate the holy feast like that? But let's read on. Her Sabbath into reproach. So many people profane the Sabbath of the Lord, all of that, right? And it says, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, right? So now check this out. So now he said he wrote to his whole kingdom, right, that all should be one people. What are they doing? What are they doing now? What are they doing today? They want all nations to become what? Become one. That's one of the main agendas, man. That's what you talk about, the New World Order, the Illuminati. How they trying to bring everybody under one central banking system of the Rothschilds. Well, guess what? Now you see that the Greeks were doing it too. The Greeks had all nations subject to them in the Mediterranean region, right? You see, they were in Israel. And now you see that he's like, you know what? We're no longer going to be separate nations. We're going to be one people. Everybody's going to be called by a Greek. And this was the apply, just like they're trying to do now, right? They're trying to unify all religions. They're trying to make one law to keep us from following our laws. So these are the things, man, that our forefathers had went through during this time, during the Greek captivity. All right, let's read on. So it says, moreover, Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one should leave his laws. So they said every nation should leave his laws, right? The laws in which their ancestors taught them and which were passed down from generation to generation. He said, leave. Let's read on. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. So all the nations, right, they agreed. They agreed according to the commandment of the king. That's why you see it's not going to be no problem for them to conform to whatever system that America's setting up now. You see what I'm saying? Or that the Rothschilds are setting up right now. It's not going to be no problem for them to sit there and say, oh, well, yes, we want to eat. So you know what? We're going to conform. Yes, we're going to conform. But you're going to see what happened to our forefathers, man, that didn't. And you're going to see the things that we're going to go through also. And he says, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion. So you see many of the Israelites, many of our own people consented to the king's religion. Forsake your laws. Follow our laws. Be a lover of boys. Be a pedophile. Sacrifice abominable animals to our god Zeus. Worship our god Zeus. Keep the feast of Bacchus. Do all of these things. Profane yourselves completely. Remember, there is no law. Only the law in which the Greeks had set forth, right? And he says, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to the religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath day. So they sacrificed to the gods of the Greeks. It said they profaned the Sabbath day, right? How do you profane the Sabbath day? Because you began to work on the Sabbath, sex on the Sabbath. You go exercise on the Sabbath in the gymnasium naked. All of these things. This is what they were doing. This was the New World Order at the time of the Greeks. But let's read on. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judea that they should follow the strange laws of the land. So these letters were sent to everybody. So now the Lord is showing you right here how you're going to find out how everything is going to be set up. It ain't going to be no secret to us at all. What they're going to do, they said, look, these are the laws that you have to follow now. You want to follow any other religion? Guess what? There's going to be consequences and repercussions for it. And as we're going to read, we're going to see the Greeks did it. It says, forbidding burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath days and festival days. So any Israelites that were keeping the commandments, he told them to do what? He said, you can no longer offer burnt offerings or sacrifices, right? What was the importance, Natazah, of those burnt offerings and those sacrifices? Absolutely. It had a lot to do with our repentance, right? If somebody sinned, they had to do what? They had to repent, and they had to go offer that animal, right? So he said, you're forbidden to do that. You can no longer do it. But let's read on. Drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath. So now you got to work on the Sabbath now. You want a job? Now you got to work the weekends now, no matter what. He says, and the festival days. Now you can no longer keep your festival days either. We see you keeping the Sabbath or the new moon, or we see you upholding the feast of trumpets. What's going to happen? Let's read on. And polluted the sanctuary and the holy people. So this is the process that began to happen, man. This was the religion of the Greeks, that we no longer had to keep the law. All right. And it says, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. This is what they were doing. They were setting up altars, right, for their sacrifices, and groves and chapels of idols. So all of these religious churches and facilities that you see, now imagine that on every corner in Jerusalem and throughout Israel. Chapels. All of that. And it says they sacrifice swine's flesh. Now, instead of you offering a lamb and a goat according to the law of the Most High, now you had to sacrifice. The only animal that you could sacrifice was a pig. You had to take that pig and go offer it. And that was the meat for the priest. Or you had to sacrifice some unclean beast, a horse or a camel. But let's read on. And they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation. So it says now you can circumcise your newborn son now, according to the law. These are all of the things, man, that our forefathers had, our forefathers and foremothers had to endure, right? So that they couldn't circumcise their children anymore. Remember, just how they see circumcision now. They see circumcision as an abomination. Your child doesn't need to be circumcised. Your child is fine. The skin, it does no harm to you. Well, yeah, for you. But guess what? I'm under the covenant of the Lord. I have to get this procedure done. My child has to be circumcised to be a part of the covenant of God. So you see, everything that the Greeks are doing and that they're laying out here is to keep the holy people profane. Why? Because they knew and they understood that these people, the holy children of the Lord, the children of Israel, our forefathers, they knew if they kept these laws, then the Lord God would put them back in power. So what better way to keep your enemies down? What better way is to start applying laws to where they can no longer keep their Sabbath days, keep their new moons, keep the laws in which they need. Now they add an insult to injury, saying, "Now you know what? I'm gonna take it to the next level now. You can no longer get your children circumcised according to the covenant of God." So that's why Paul said, man, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right, but against wickedness in high places, you see. Those who are empowered by the spiritual darkness of Satan, just to paraphrase. But that's what's going on here. They're making all of these laws, and they're doing the exact same thing even today. So let's read. And make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. So now that's what they wanted to do. That's what the Greeks wanted to happen. They wanted our people to forget the laws of the Lord and and to change all of the ordinances, just like they do now. That's why you got the Babylonian Talmud and all of that crap, man, that those Jewish people be practicing, saying that you can marry a 3-year-old girl and consummate the marriage at 9, saying that you can debate God and win, or saying that there's no, saying that you no longer have to keep the feast days and all of that BS. They're changing the laws, changing the ordinances, all of that, man. So let's read on. Now it reads here in verse 50. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. So now that was a judgment. If you did not keep the commandment of the king, then guess what? You had to be put to death. That was the judgment for not going according to the system of the Greeks. But you'll see that many of our forefathers and foremothers, they couldn't roll like that. So let's read on. And it reads, in the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the city of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit every one that forsook the law, and so that they committed evils in the land. So let's read it one more time. It says, then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land. So many evils were committed in the land because those Israelites forsook the law. Let's read on. And drove the Israelites into secret places, even so wherever they could flee for safety or succor, right? So now you have the righteous Israelites. They were the ones that were fleeing into these secret places, man, going underground because the affliction was so heavy upon them above ground, right? They would go hide in caves and all of that. Let's read on. Now, in the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and they built idol altars throughout the city of Judah on every side. So these were altars dedicated to Zeus that they built. All right. And it says, and they burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets, right? So then they began to worship Zeus, just as the Greeks did, all right, and many of their gods. But that was the main or the ultimate abomination, desolation that was set up, you know what I'm saying, that was set up in all of the city of Judah, all right, or in the cities of Judah. And it says, and when they had rent to pieces the books of the law, which were found, they burnt them with fire. So now it says they burnt the books of the law. So these Bibles in which we have right now, so just imagine the scrolls and the books that were that they had throughout the city. Any of them that they found, they ripped them to pieces and burnt them with fire. All right. And it says, and whosoever was found with any of the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put to death. So if you was found with a Bible, they checked your, they did a random check on you. They checked you. They checked your bag. They found a Bible or scroll in your bag, or they seen you holding one, then you would die. You would die. Or they found you consenting to the law, so they seen us with fringes on. They seen us, doing anything according to the law, having a beard on your face. Remember, many of the Greeks were clean face. They were shaven. That's their culture. That's the way they liked it. They liked the whole beauty of being young in the face and all of that. So it says, verse 58, thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the city. So as many righteous brothers and sisters that were found, this is what they did to them in the cities. Now, on the 5 and 20th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. So the altar of the Most High, right? They sacrificed unto their God. And it says, at which time, according to the commandment, that they put certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. So these were the sisters that wanted their sons to grow up in the covenant of the Most High, right? And what happened? They were found, or they were discovered. Somebody snitched on them, right? And what happened? It says, and they hung the infants about their necks. And, it says they hung the infants about their necks and ransacked their houses and slew them that had circumcised them. So it said they went in the houses, man, they ransacked them. And what happened? It says that they killed those women. Okay? So it says, howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. So many of our people said, no, it's not happening. We're not eating anything that's profane. Nothing, no pork is coming in my mouth. And it says, wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meat, and that they might not profane the holy covenant, so they died. And there was a very great wrath upon Israel. So many people, many of our forefathers and foremothers, they elected not to eat any unclean thing. So it's just definitely showing you, man, the level of strength that they had to say, well, you know what? We believe in the righteousness of the covenant. Now let's go to the book of Wisdom of Solomon real quick. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3. Let's show you where these brothers and sisters are at right now. Because remember, there's hope for them. Because they didn't give their lives over to uncleanness. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, and let's read verse 1. It says, but the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God. So it says the souls of the righteous, right? The righteous Israelites. It says, and there shall no torment touch them. In the sight of the unwise they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery. So when we read about these accounts, man, of the horrible atrocities that were happening unto our forefathers and our foremothers, remember, we can't look at it just only on a physical level, right? So it's showing us right here, man, that we can't take their departure for misery, right? Why? Because like it says the righteous souls are with the Most High, and it says those souls are not in torment. Those souls are with God. It says where no torment will touch them whatsoever. That's the blessing. That's the beauty of giving your life for this word. Right? So let's read on. So it says, and they're going from us to be utter destruction, but they are in peace. So look at that. So though we see them in the manner in which they died, they were pulled apart, cut off, hung, slew. But even though they died so miserable like that, but yet they are at peace. And they'll never have to go through the afflictions of the flesh ever again. Now they're being set aside to receive their reward from the Most High. All right? Let's read on. And it says, for though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. So though men punish them, right? So remember, the Greeks said, man, if you got caught keeping the commandments, you got caught circumcising your child, you had to die. Right? But this is what the Most High said, man. He said, yet their hope is full of immortality. So remember, when our forefathers and foremothers were giving their lives, man, they knew that they were going to receive immortality because they knew, like, man, I'm keeping this covenant unto death. Is nothing that's going to separate me from the Most High. Nothing. Not death, no pork, no nothing going to keep me from the Most High. Right? Let's read on. And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for himself. Look at that. So it says, so now you understand, man, that our people were going through a chastisement period. And that many of the Israelites, man, the righteous ones that were being tested in this time during the Maccabees, seeing whether they were going to keep the law or whether they were going to side with the Greeks. And you see many of our people consented with the Greeks. And you see that's how many of them, lost their identity, lost their nationality, right? in so much, man, that, when Christ came, man, what Christ said, I have other sheep that are not of this fold. So he's like, man, he had to build an entire ministry, man, that was dedicated to going to teach those Israelites the law, statutes, and commandments, man, that were scattered all throughout the regions of the Mediterranean, right, and other parts of the world, even in so much that how we got the word now today being taught. All right. So it says, so that by them being a little chastised, they're going to be greatly rewarded. All right. For God proved them and found them worthy for himself. As gold in the furnace hath been tried, as gold in the furnace hath he tried them and received them as a burnt offering. So as a sacrifice, he's received them. Okay, that's a good chapter to read. So make sure you guys write that down, man. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3. Go ahead and just read into it. So I'm going to read chapter 2 now. All right, and you'll see the revolutionaries, man, that the Most High was now going to raise up, man, to save Israel from the oppression and the affliction of the Greeks. Okay, so chapter 2 in First Maccabees and verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simon, a priest of the sons of Jarib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons, Johanan, called Cadiz, Simon called Thassus, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, and Eleazar called Abiram, and Jonathan, whose surname was Appius. All right. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers? Her temple is become as a man without glory. So y'all know what a man without glory looks like, right? It's nothing no more. It's no longer the center of attention or attraction, right? It's no longer where everybody goes to see the glory and the magnificence of the Most High, right? So now it's just something that's just there. Okay, let's read on. And he says, her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy. So, what nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? So now you see Mattathias, man, he's questioning. He's like, man, all of the holy vessels are gone into captivity. The Greeks took that from us. They're killing our children. They're destroying our young men. So it's like, dang, what nation hasn't had a part in the spoils of our people? And that's real, because all of those nations, man, that you read about is receiving judgments from the Most High, from the Ammonites, Edomites, to the Moabites, to your African, all of your African peoples, man, that's partaking in this. These are the nations, man, that was taking spoil. All right. And verse 11, and all her ornaments are taken away of her free women. She is become a bond slave. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. To what end there shall we live any longer? So he's like, man, what end shall we live any longer? How will we live anymore? Because this is what the nation is doing. This is how bad it was during the time of the Greeks. Okay? So now we're going to drop down and we're going to read verse 19, and then we're going to get to the memorial of Simon, all right, and how this feast came about. So the Maccabees is a very heavy book, man. It goes into very, very heavy detail on the wars and many of the, warlike action which our forefathers were doing, okay, during this time, all right. So you see, Mattathias was the one who was the catalyst or the starter of the whole revolt against the Greek Empire, all right. So it says, verse 19, it says that Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice through all the nations that are under the king's dominion, obey him and fall away every one from his religion of their fathers and give consent to his commandments. Yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers, right? So he's like, man, though all of the other nations forsake the laws of their people, guess what? We're going to follow the laws of God. We're going to follow the laws that our forefathers were following. Verse 21, God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. He said, God forbid, man, that we should forsake any of our law or any of our ordinances. He says, we will not hearken to the king's word to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left hand. So this is his stance right here. So this is how our stance has to be. He's like, man, we're not going to go from the, we're not going to sway from the law on the right or to the left. We ain't going to go right. We ain't going to go left. We're going straight. So now he said, now when he had left off speaking words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing, when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Therefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So you see, Mattathias had killed this Israelite that was a traitor, a sellout. All right. So this is what started the Maccabean revolt. Okay, Mattathias was the one who started this. So as you read on, he killed the king's officers that was there, and he had sent message to the people. He was like, man, everyone who was zealous for the laws of God, guess what? You follow me, and we're gonna keep these commandments. If you want to follow the king, you better get out of my way. So that was the stance in which Mattathias took, and then as before he died, you'll see that many of the powerful people that were in Israel, right? Many of those people who had escaped, who are still keeping the commandments, right? They began to side with Mattathias, right? So this is how the Most High began to bring everything together as far as his revolution against the Greek Empire. Okay. So now you read about Jonathan. You read about many of the valiant acts of Judas. All right. You read about many of the valiant acts of Jonathan. Now let's get that brother Simon now. So, I mean, it's very important, man, that we read and we understand his history. Why? Because, remember, don't they say history always repeats itself? And it actually does. So right now, man, we're in the exact same process. Even though nothing has come together just yet, everybody's learning their nationality. Everybody's getting a chance to keep the laws and the commandments of the Most High. Everyone has the opportunity to learn about keeping the laws of the Most High. So everybody is going through that transformation stage, and then the Most High, what he's going to start doing there, he's going to start making that final cut. And when he starts making that final cut, that's when the affliction comes. And then that's how he's going to prove who his righteous are. And then once he proves who his righteous are, that's when he's going to bring out his revolutionaries, those who are going to fight for the people, those who are going to uplift the people and keep them on the right track according to the commandments of God. All right? And then you're going to see Yahweh Shai come in great power and glory and assemble everyone and go forth to war against all nations and bring them into subjection. Right? So now let's read this. Okay, so we're going to start at First Maccabees chapter 13. And we're going to read verse 43. And it says, in those days Simon encamped against Gaza and besieged it round about, and he made also an engine of war and set it by the city and battered a certain tower and took it. And they that were in the engine leaped into the city, whereupon there was a great uproar in the city, insomuch as the people of the city rent their clothes and climbed upon the walls with their wives and children and cried with a loud voice, beseeching Simon to grant them peace. right? So Simon, you see, he was one who was a great developer of engines of war. So the engine that he had developed was like a catapult, man, that not only could batter walls and towers down, but also he had made an engine of war that could send his, send his soldiers into the city. And it says, verse 46, and they said, deal not with us according to our wickedness, but according to thy mercy. So Simon was appeased towards them and fought no more against them, but put them out of the city and cleansed the houses wherein the idols were, and so entered into it with song and thanksgiving. Yea, he put all uncleanness out of it and placed such men that were found and yea, he put all uncleanness out of it and placed such men that there as would keep the law, and made it stronger than it was before, and built therein a dwelling place for himself. They also of the tower in Jerusalem were kept so straight that they could neither come forth nor go into the country, nor buy nor sell, wherefore they were in great distress for want of victuals, and a great number of them perished through famine. So Simon had trapped many of those wicked men that were occupying Jerusalem. He trapped them in there, and many of them had died through famine. And he says, verse 59, then cried they to Simon, beseeching him to be at one with them, which thing he granted them. And when he had put them out from thence, he cleansed the tower from pollutions, and enter into it the 23rd day of the second month, the 23rd day of the second month, which we're right now, in the 171st year, with thanksgiving and branches of palm trees, and with harps, and with cymbals, and with viols, and hymns and songs, because there was destroyed a great enemy out of Israel. He ordained also that the day should be kept every year with gladness. Moreover, the hills of the temple that was by the tower he made stronger than it was, and there he dwelt himself with his company. And when Simon that John his son was a valiant man, and he made him captain of all his hosts, and dwelt in Gazara. Right, so you find out that's John Hyrcanus. All right, John Hyrcanus the first, that was Simon's son. All right, and there's an extensive history about John Hyrcanus in the book of the Josephus, which he goes in. You see that he cleared the rest of the what you call the children of Idumea, or the children of Edom, out of the land. He made many of them convert to the laws and statutes and commandments. All right, if they wanted to stay in the land. Okay,